Hey everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. Today we have Kevin Hancock and he is presenting his book. Can you hold it up, please, Kevin?
I can
Uh,
see.
yes,
Yes.
The Seventh Power, One CEO's Journey into the Business of Shared Leadership. So welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be with you, CJ.
So I want to start first talk off about your own personal journey and how you met the Lakota tribe. And, it started off with a diagnosis in 2012 of spasmodic dysphonia. And at the time, were you still the CEO of Hancock Lumber?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's
Yeah.
start there.
So about our company, Hancock Lumber, just for some quick context, is uh, dates back to the 1840s. The company's been
Wow.
in business since prior to the Civil War, and I'm part of the sixth generation of my family to work here at the company, which is a great honor.
Mm,
So in 2010, at the peak of the housing and mortgage market collapse, I quite suddenly began to have trouble speaking. Something I'd always taken for granted, never thought of, and done a lot of. And it turned out I'd acquired a rare neurological voice disorder
mm,
called spasmodic dysphonia that affects only speech with no known cause and no known cure. I've recovered quite a bit since then, although you can definitely totally hear my voice is a bit unique. But 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't even have been able to have this conversation.
oh,
So
wow.
I quickly had to figure out how to help lead without talking a lot. That was kind of the big challenge. But then the connection with the Lakota a couple years later, when the economy started to stabilize, I really felt I needed to take a bit of time to kind of regain my own balance, search for my voice again, if you will. And I had always had a love affair with the American West. And in summer of 2012, I picked up a copy of the National Geographic magazine, and the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation was the cover story. And I read that article and was just really moved by the story, the place, the people, the injustice, the spiritualism, the resilience. And I finished the article and said, I'm going to go there. I
Mm,
want to see what life is like for the people who live there. And one innocent trip has I've now been there over 20 times, have taken
wow.
two names, have lots of friends there, and have learned so much from my time with that community, and written a couple of books, including the one I just showed you
Mm,
as a result. So this and the connection, just to pull the two together, at Pine Ridge, I met an entire community that didn't feel fully heard. That
wow.
really was the connection. So I was searching for my own voice. This was a community that felt marginalized, not heard. And I put the two together, and it really made me realize that there are lots of ways for humans to lose a piece of their voice in this world.
Mm,
And that perhaps even the very purpose or meaning of a human life on earth was to find one's voice, to self actualize, to come into your own unique, never to be repeated voice. But to pull it back to leadership, when I contemplated this, I concluded that unfortunately, across time, leaders of organizations had probably done more to limit or restrict or direct the voices of others than to free them. And
mm,
that's when it hit me that maybe my voice limitation, because as a CEO, I was in a position of leadership, maybe it was an invitation and a blessing and a calling
wow.
to strengthen the voices of others. And that's what I got
Mm,
really excited about, this idea at work or anywhere of creating communities where everyone felt heard, where leadership was shared, and everyone had a voice.
That's beautiful. I want to go into mapping that to current times where people are really struggling in so many different ways. And I'm sure you've talked to, I don't even know, I don't have people at Hancock Lumber return to work, or what's the scenario for you? And what are you hearing are kind of the voices of the people that work for you and their concerns?
Yeah, that's such a great segue, and obviously top of mind for all of us right now, right? So our company ended up being a quote unquote essential industry company. So we actually never closed.
Mm,
And to make the challenge bigger, um, our work is work that you have to be there to do. You can't do it from home. For example, we make lumber, one of the things we do, and you cannot. Well, we haven't figured out how to make lumber from our couch in sweatpants. So you have to actually be there.
right.
So we have 550 people working at our company across 14 sites, and we've been at work the entire time. So it
Wow.
has been a, a really interesting experience for us, but overall, actually, amazingly uplifting.
Uplifting. Okay, I need to hear that. You must have
Uh,
done something to uplift people.
well, and obviously, when I say that, that doesn't negate the fact that for many, this virus has been um, super, super painful, or um, brought death and a lot of really sad, tragic things. So that's in the center. But um, beyond that, to what's happened at our company, when we found out that we were going to be able to work in terms of the government's view of our company, the next big question we had was, would people want to work? Would they feel safe and comfortable coming to work? And so we really, in keeping with the philosophy I just discussed, started right there with a dialogue with our people about what they wanted to do, not what the company wanted them to do, but what they wanted to do.
Mm,
And what we found in the end was that essentially everyone really wanted to work and wanted to figure out how to do it safely and with distance and caution and care. But think about the simple power of going about it that way, right? The
yeah.
traditional model would be the company says you have to work, but a much more powerful model is the company says, what would you like to do? And
Mm,
let's figure out how to do that together. And so, because we had that organic buy in, that's what's made it uplifting. Like, it has been amazing to watch our people figure out how to distance every function in the company, prioritize cleaning, prioritize supporting others when they need it to be home, or whatever the case may be, and that we've actually been able to work and be safe. That's
mm,
what's been uplifting about it.
yeah, is to have a conversation so that you have the social distancing and the cleanliness, all the caution and the safety, but the people came up with the idea. I love that. What are some, so now that people are at work, what are some of the things kind of at this point people are very emotional, right? There's a lot of emotional turmoil. What are the kind of things that have happened and how have you led through that?
Yeah, I think it really, well. What I would say is this: I think a crisis like this uh, really reveals the culture of your company or your community,
Hmm.
and our approach is based on this premise that everyone has a voice, everyone leads and that power is meant to be dispersed, not collected. And that fits really well with combating COVID-19, because if you ask the question, who in America or who on planet Earth has to help lead the defeat of this virus, the answer is everybody.
Mm.
Every single human has to participate for us to have the best possible outcome as a society. So, and this doesn't surprise me, because this is really where I've landed, that the model in the 21st century of distributed power is more powerful in a lovely way than that traditional kind of bureaucratic approach to power to the center.
Mm-hmm.
And you really see this a bit, like I feel bad for government right now, trying so hard to do right by people, but it's almost impossible to sit in a centric, monolithic headquarters and write out every possible scenario that can come up. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And as you try to do it, you just tie yourself and you're up in knots. So the center has to be about a simple set of fundamental values and beliefs, and then it's trust and faith in the individual human spirit, the seventh power, which is the subject of my book.
All right, I want to go into that piece in the next segment. What just hit me so powerfully is that I've heard this in lots of different forms, but the idea of, and this is going to sound that it's not related at all, but it is. I interviewed a gentleman who was on the Malibu fires. And, we all believe that the firemen will help us when it's needed. And when there's the Malibu fire, in which it was hitting large swatches of land, there were actually times when this gentleman who I interviewed had instances where they called the fire department. They were hoping the right thing would happen. And the firemen had to make hard decisions, just like they're doing at COVID, on which houses can be saved and which ones can't. And so they didn't come to save certain houses. And this gentleman that I interviewed, luckily, had bought a spray to put on his house to keep it safe. And he said, you know what, the one thing I learned is that we have such a high reliance on these authority figures to save us, to protect us, and we lose all personal dominion as a result of that. And so, so that's kind of the individual self and our high reliance on mommy and daddy and all the authorities to keep us safe, versus this idea that we are all responsible for all our power, our safety, our security. And this whole distribution of power is not only good for business, but it's a practical thing, I think. And that's one of the things I'm learning. What I can tell something's generating for you. What are your thoughts related to that?
Oh, my thought simply is that was beautiful, and I completely agree with what you just said. And I think that is I'm so excited to hear you say it, because I believe that is the human quest in the 21st century. We've been indoctrinated into the belief system that power lives out there away from us in a distant capital, in a monolithic headquarters. Mm-hmm. But the Aquarian age, to me, is really about the manifestation of the innate power and beauty and sacredness of the individual human spirit. And this is something you see at Pine Ridge and in other indigenous societies. It goes right back, as you know well, to that understanding that that we are not disconnected from nature. We belong to it. We are a manifestation of nature. And so to the extent that nature or the universe is sacred or holy, so too is every single individual human spirit. And the problems we need to solve as a planet and the opportunities we can capitalize on in the 21st century require everybody. And it's really going to be incumbent on leaders of traditional organizations, whether it is church, state, or corporate, to think very differently about what the capital or headquarters is supposed to do. And it's really supposed to give power and trust, not take it.
I love it. Okay. We've been talking to Kevin Hancock. Can you hold up your book, The Seventh Power, in which in the next segment I want to continue talking about the individual power and what that means for us as individuals, and then going back to what that means specifically for corporations. We've been talking to Kevin Hancock about his book, The Seventh Power, and we will be right back. Thank you so much.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show, and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.